Welcome to Imperfect in an Uncertain World. Let's talk about nonviolence. We may say that we are nonviolent, but there is often a struggle to understand what violence really is. We can name a violent act, one in which someone is injured or something is damaged or destroyed. We can understand that type of violence. But I want to talk about two other kinds of violence and the roots of violence. I want to talk a little bit today about how we can be compassionate and peaceful instead of violent. So let's start with two definitions. Violence. Now, violence is an injury, abuse, damage, or destruction. Pretty simple. Nonviolence is the absence of violence or a place of peace and compassion. Let's talk a little bit about what violence is. When we think of violence, our thoughts may center on physical violence. But violence is more than just our actions. Violence occurs in one of three ways: violence in our actions, violence in our words, and violence in our thoughts. The first two forms of violence are visible. Violence in our thoughts is invisible to everyone but us. So let's break down violence. Actions are physical violence that may leave visible marks. Actions may be slapping, pushing, shaking your finger, shooting a gun. We can see these acts with our eyes. And if we are a victim, we can feel them with our physical body. Words leave invisible marks. They hurt and harm, both emotionally and mentally. Words that are violent include, "You are stupid," "I hate you," "You cannot do anything right." Those words are all acts of violence. The wounds might be invisible, but they still harm us. Then there are our thoughts. Maybe those thoughts are self-directed. "I'm stupid. I can't do anything right. No one loves me." These words really shift how we see ourselves. These words shift how we engage the world. We create a resonance with these words, and they ultimately become a self-fulfilling prophecy. We might draw people and situations to us that show us the truth in the violent illusion of our thoughts. Now, some of our thoughts are also directed towards other people. We might think to ourselves, "She is really fat." "He is stupid." Or, "That idiot does not know how to drive." These words may never be uttered out loud. Another person may never know what we thought about them. That doesn't mean that they do not cause harm. They do. These non-physical roots of violence grow deep into our being. They feed on our anger and grow our fear. Eventually, they cannot be contained, for they destroy the silence in our soul. How do we weed out the violence from our heart and reestablish the silence in our soul? By paying attention to our thoughts. Through mindful awareness, we don't ignore the violence in our thoughts. We question the judgments and beliefs behind the thoughts. And we rescript what we think the next time we hear the violence in our thoughts. An example of rescripting. The thought, "You cannot do anything right," might be rescripted to, "Maybe that didn't work out as planned, so I'll try it another way." As we rescript, we can live as Thomas Edison did. I haven't failed. I can tell you 10,000 ways not to create a light bulb. You can 10,000 ways not to blank, enter your own. That shift in the way we see ourselves is the beginning of self-compassion. We cut ourselves some slack, and we do something kind for ourselves. We're loving and gentle to ourselves. We do something that will alleviate our suffering instead of having it erupt in violence. The intent is not to get stuck in how we are violent, but to notice when we are violent and celebrate each time we rescript and reframe the way we respond to the world. Thanks for being with me. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. I will be back next week.